So what is this going to lead to? Well, it's going to lead to Iran getting in, like they're saying, okay? And then it's going to lead to all the other countries that Iran is aligned with, Russia, China, the BRICS alliance, all of these people siding together on one side, which a lot of those countries has already come out and said, we support Palestine, all right? Now, America and America's government is very pro-Israel. And what's going to happen as a result of this is likely, and not maybe not likely, but likely a worldwide conflict because of this. All right.
While we're at our absolute weakest
Correct.
We've ever been in.
Which who was involved in that? The same guys who were funding Hamas. So we're talking about a chain of events that could potentially end up with America being conquered, which I believe is the ultimate goal, which is what I said for years and years and years. There's a difference, just like there's a difference here between the American people and the American government. I think every single American listening to this show understands that our government's not representing us properly right now, right? Like they're not doing our bidding. They're not doing what is in our interests. And we're all pissed off about it because we're all feeling pain over it.
Yeah.
And we have to keep that in mind when we look at other countries. When we look at Israel, we have to understand that most of the Jewish population that lives in Israel is not represented by the Jew elite people who are in control of Israel. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, and the same goes for the people of Iran. The same goes for the people of Russia. The same goes everywhere. Like we're dealing.
The argument is universal.
Yes, we're dealing with humanity who is represented by some people who are not part of the same group. And we have to keep that in mind when we talk about these people, right? Like when we talk about Palestine and we talk about Palestinians, most Palestinians are not Hamas, okay? When we talk about the Zionist Jew elite class, right, that runs the World Economic Forum or, you know, is in control of Israel right now, which, by the way, up until a week ago, most of the citizens fucking hate it, all right?
They were about to out-throw.
We have to understand that this is not as simple as just saying it's Jewish people or it's Palestinians or it's Russians, or that's a generalization they want us to have so that we will buy into the efforts to destroy each other. All right. So it's just not true.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when we look at why Soros, what has the actions of George Soros produced over the last 40 years? Destruction, death, chaos. All right. And for whatever reason, we don't really know. But the main point is, anything this dude puts his hands on is bad for us. And that's been proven over and over again. So when I see this and I see that he's funding, now this is speculation, I'm just connecting dots logically. When I see this thing where he's funding Hamas, all right, Hamas attacks Israel. Israel allowed the attacks to happen. Regardless of what you say, they were allowed to do these attacks. Okay, they have the highest surveillance capacity of any country in the history of Earth at any time, with the best technology, the most. They are known for this. This is what they are known for.
They're known about it.
They're not known for the most powerful army. They're known for the best surveillance, and they're known for sharing that surveillance with us and those techniques with us over the course of time that have helped make our cities safer. Okay, so there's good and bad here. All right. But there's no fucking way that they didn't know this was happening. It's impossible.
No.
All right. So they allowed this to happen. So the question becomes, why did the Israeli government allow Hamas to attack Israel citizens? These are three different groups of people.
Right.
All right. The reason is, in my opinion, there's a few reasons. But the main reason that I believe that has caused this attack to be able to happen is that this narrative that quote unquote elite Jewish people are controlling a lot of these mechanisms that are fucking up the world, the banking system, World Economic Forum, right? And keep in mind, this is not anti-Semitism. This is pointing out there are people who are criminals who happen to be Jewish who are all working together to create this disruption.
Yeah.
And that's being exposed. And what's also been exposed is how the ADL has used quote unquote, the term hate speech to deflect any criticism of these actions. That was exposed for the 3 weeks leading up to this. All right. You have Netanyahu, who was basically ready to be overthrown 2 weeks ago. Now people are supporting him. So their narrative was crumbling. Okay. So what better way to garner support for what they're doing than to stage themselves as the victim of these attacks, where real people, their citizens that they're supposed to love and care about and be one with, are actually killed. Okay, that's the first reason. The second reason is, and we have to think a few steps ahead, why would George Soros, why would these people fund Hamas to attack their own people? Why would they do that? Well, what has the Open Society Foundation typically, what has been their mission across all in Europe and now in the United States, is to diversify the population, open borders, and create a more united globe, right? Globalization, which is communist, by the way. And when we think about the destruction that's been done in France, in Ireland, all through Europe with the migrant crisis, all right, now to the point where Macron is like, nah, f that, I'm done with this shit, okay? And he's been a supporter of that for years and years and years. Think how bad it's had to have gotten for him to be like, no, I'm not doing that anymore, okay? Now, we have all these things in play, but ultimately over the course of the last, 20 years, we've seen things come into play. We've seen things like political correctness. Don't say this, even if it's true, because it offends people. Okay. We've seen things like participation trophy. There's no nobility in actually being the best. Showing up is enough. Removes the ability and the understanding of competition. The first part of political correctness is to remove the truth. Okay. Then we go into silent majority. Don't talk about politics because it's rude. Just be a part of the silent majority, AKA don't talk about it, because if you talk about it, other people will join you. All right. So be quiet. All right. Then we have cancel culture. Cancel culture. If someone says something out of line, crush them. Take everything. Take their bank. Take their this. Take their that. And all the while they've implemented all of these societal weapons onto our culture, they've started to create scenarios where crazy shit's happening that people are afraid to speak about. Right? The borders are wide open, the crime in the cities, all of our money being sent to Ukraine, our strategic oil being at zero, our money being inflated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We go down the list. Okay. So in short, the destruction of the American culture. Now, let's think about the pure numbers here. All right. There's 14 million Jewish people in the world. There's 1.8 billion Arab Muslims, and then there's, I think, another billion non-Arab Muslims. All right. So you have 14 million people versus 3 billion people. Okay. That's 14 people versus 3,000 people in scale down numbers, just so you can understand. All right. So Hamas attacks Israel. Hamas won't allow the citizens to leave. Israel invades the ground attack and by default kills a ton of citizens, creates a Palestinian genocide. All right. Now, what do you think the rest of the Arab countries are going to think about that? They're going to be upset.
They're going to be pissed.
Okay. And we're seeing this in the streets. This is what we're seeing everywhere. Now, do you think George Soros knows this or doesn't know this?
No, I think he knew this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So what is this going to lead to? Well, it's going to lead to Iran getting in, like they're saying, okay? And then it's going to lead to all the other countries that Iran is aligned with, Russia, China, the BRICS alliance, all of these people siding together on one side, which a lot of those countries has already come out and said, we support Palestine, all right? Now, America and America's government is very pro-Israel, okay? But America's people are starting to realize, holy shit, we're going to get drug into this fucking world war. And what's going to happen as a result of this is likely, and not maybe not likely, but likely a worldwide conflict because of this. All right.
While we're at our absolute weakest
Correct.
state we've ever been.
Who was involved in that? The same guys who were funding Hamas. So we're talking about a chain of events that could potentially end up with America being conquered, which I believe is the ultimate goal, which is what I said for years and years and years. Okay, and this doesn't have to do with the Jews or whatever the you guys want to say. This whole defense of anti-Semitic by calling people out is over. Okay, it's over. We're going to call you out if you're a fucking criminal. We don't give a shit if you're black or you're white or you're Jewish or you're something else. This identity politics game is done. We are hurting here in America. Our economy is shit. Our crime is crazy. All of these things that are going on that are destroying our way of life. You're not going to continue to shame us into pointing out or into staying silent when things are fucked up. We're going to point them out. So when it comes to what's actually happening, what I believe is actually happening, and I could be wrong, I hope I am wrong, but what I believe is actually happening is the setup for Israel to kill as many Palestinians as possible, and then for the backlash to create almost a second Holocaust situation that we have to get involved in that ends up destroying America in the long run.
Yeah.
I don't think that any of these guys, Klaus Schwab, Soros, any of these people, I don't think they give two fucks about the average Jewish citizen.
No.
They do not care. And Jewish citizens, just like American citizens or Israel citizens, are brainwashed into thinking that those people actually care about them. Just like we assume here, a large majority of our country still assumes that the Biden administration is working in our interests. They are not. All right. So, it's very dangerous. It's very complicated. There's a lot to it. And you can call people the names and you can say they're wrong and you could say this, but ultimately, everybody has to take a step back and ask, how is this going to affect you? How is this going to affect your family? How is this going to affect your future? And for the future of humanity, if this continues, this is not good for anyone.
No, all this is doing is setting up the hate for our grandchildren. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, our future grandkids will be fighting each other because of this shit, right?
Yeah, what's left of them.
I mean, whatever they're allowed to, whatever crumbs that are left for them. And it's like, my thing is like, okay, so as an American citizen, what actions should we be doing, whether that's vocally, whether that's, because like, here's the thing, like, everybody laughed in, the 1970s with like the anti-war hippie movement and stuff, right? But like, that's kind of what we need right now, bro. Like we are in
we
no
need more
position.
than that.
We're in no position to fight.
We need our entire military to do their job and uphold the Constitution and stand with the people of America and stop doing the bidding of corrupt tyrants who are compromised by other countries and start doing the bidding of the American people. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need the military leaders who sign an oath to represent the people of this country, loyal to the Constitution, to fulfill that oath. The mechanisms are already in place. People just aren't following them.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
And do I think that'll happen? I think if that were to happen, I think if that was going to happen, it would have already happened. It would have happened with COVID. It would have happened with the election. I think our high-level military leaders are compromised just like our president is. And I think there's a ton of good men and women. 99.9% of the people in the military are people that think they're doing the right thing, and they think they're serving the American people by serving those people in Washington, D.C., but they're actually going to end up getting us killed. And so what needs to happen is our military leaders need to come together and say, we're not fucking doing this. We're not going to sacrifice any more American lives for the lives of people 50,000 miles away or however far it is, right? We're not doing that. Yeah. Like, we have our own problems here, and we're about to get our military decimated by all the militaries across the world. And then what? What's the next step after that?
That's the thing. What happens after that?
What's the next step after that? Are you listeners going to send your kids to go die for this cause? I don't think so. And so now would be the time for you to stand up and be absolutely unshakably vocal and firm in your stance on this, that we are not fucking going to war. We are not fighting any wars for any motherfuckers over there or in Washington, D.C. anymore. It's mass non-compliance, and it needs to start with the military. It needs to start with the sheriff's offices and the police and the fucking political leaders on the state level. That shit starts to happen, we might be able to fix this. But if it doesn't, we're going to see a war like we've never seen before. And when they talk about what's left afterwards, it ain't going to be much.
No.
And your whole dreams and all your dreams for your life and everything are fucking over. And that's real shit. And we're at the inflection point This is why I've done this show for so long. This is why I continue to come on here and talk about these things, because I've been trying to avoid this from happening. And here we are. It's on the fucking doorstep. And, you know, when we think about what happened during 2019, when did the drama of 2019 start up? It started in October of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's October of 2023. And this is going to be built into some lasting conflict that becomes this major thing. I told you guys it was going to be a war or a pandemic. The only part I fucked up is I thought they'd do it before midterms, but they haven't. Now they're doing it before the actual election, and this will be their reason to either steal the election again or not have it at all.
Yeah.
And dude, if you do not stand up and you do not stand firm and you do not fucking voice this, you are going to have to live with the idea that you contributed to the downfall and the conquering of America.